Hi there. So today's going to be a fun one. I'm not going to be online for too long, but I'm at least going to do a little walkthrough of running my 3D printer just to do a simple little print, because in the last film that I did, I showed that I had these cool little mesh-tastic devices, but I have these entirely 3D printed enclosures that I made for them. And with these 3D printed enclosures, well, it'd be cool to actually just show the process of how to put these together, throw them onto the printer, and get it working. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the second camera for a second. So I'm running in a Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon, and that's my go-to printer, that I use for all my printing needs. And you can see it's got the AMS on the right there, which does the trick for me. That's that device to the right of it that has 4 different filaments in it that it can switch between as it prints. And something unique about that AMS makes it so that when you look at something like this, I never changed filament. It does it on its own to do this. So with this 3D printer, I was able to make something that looks this unique and cool, and equally able to make some really cool patterns like that actually says, if it focuses on it, hey, GPS, right? And I could put the name of the device. That's actually the Mesh-tastic little logo on there too. So you could look across this and say, how many colors are on here, right? You got the gray, you got the black, you got the green, and you got a white. And this was all printed in one go. And I think this entire frame too was made in about 3 hours. So like in 3 hours, I went from something not existing to suddenly this, using that Bamboo Labs. Now, another thing that's useful for 3D printing too, this started as just like a hacker project, right? There's just all these parts and you're going to be assembling them and putting them together. Well, yeah. I was able to design a frame that worked for my needs. And that's the special thing about 3D printing, because like that one was useful for its particular application, but then I needed one that was like a little bit more ruggedized, and that's where I came up with this one. It's extra thick layering to it, has a thicker component here to make it so that I can hold on to a clip or something like that better. But the biggest thing was this is like almost crush proof with how it was made. It just doesn't have any give. And that was because I was able to put that into the model's design. So without going too more, talking about it, let's actually go see it in practice. So let's just take a look at the monitor here. This is the Bamboo Labs software that comes with, operating with the Bamboo Lab in particular. There's a slicer software for pretty much any 3D printer, but this one from Bamboo Labs just kicks butt. And the reason it does, well, look at that. I selected model, threw it onto the plate, and really quickly I can go in here and let's just say this is extra draft. We're going to make it really fast while we're here on stream. And I'll bet you the turn time for this thing is only going to be, there's 30 minutes to pump that out. I think there was one they had sliced, PLA basic on an A1 mini. Let's see what this one configures to. Now, I don't have an A1 mini though. I have the X1 Carbon, so let me get that X1 Carbon going there. Ooh, this has little cutout zones to say no. So let's go Bamboo Lab, X1 Carbon. Don't save the modified values, slice to plate. And there we are. What do you think the slice time is? It says 23 minutes, okay. It's better than 30 minutes, and the sooner we start it, the sooner it'll be done. But let's go look at this. Ooh, it's actually standard. Let's go back to extra draft. I'll bet that'll really ramp this up. Let's see if we get a little quicker. So 22 minutes. It's still the same settings. Okay. That works for me though. Well, I'm going to do a little cursory check here I took the thing on the right there to look at every layer. I see the first layer starts pretty low and works its way up. It's fairly hollow. And at the end of it, we get a simple little boat. So with that, I'm going to switch you to I'm going to click print plate and send it to my printer and stuff, but I'm going to give you the second camera so that you could see this in action. And we're going to use just a white filament to start. So there it goes. It got sent to the printer. Maybe. just to give you the monitor again, here's what we're looking at. So I'm going to put myself up here, and there it is, going to the printer. You might have heard in the background the printer kicked off. It was like da da da. It makes a tone to say what it's up to, and that's the view inside of it. But while you're looking at that, I'm gonna go ahead and open the door so you could actually see what the other camera I have. So, all right, so let's get this thing right up in there. Okay, so something that's fun about having this other view, and yeah, we could rotate between these two, but it gives you a bigger perspective. You're not quite in the machine, as the camera that's in it is in that top left area, versus this is making it so you get a little further back. What's going on right now is it did just unload filament from that AMS. That's the device on the right. So here's what's kind of fun. We're gonna look at the AMS. And you can see the white filament started to move there because it is indeed just filling from this filament to start. And it's also blinking the light to it, which gives you your indicator that's the filament it's selected. Now I'll go ahead and seal that back up because it did indeed load it. And something else that happened in the background while it loaded that filament is it does a little bit of a what we're calling the poop, right? It makes a little 3D filament, test where it extruded this just to make sure it's working, and then cuts that off nozzle, and then it gets to work actually starting the print. So let's see this thing get back in action. And just to go over the Bamboo Lab at a top level, no joke, looking at it from the top, right? This is your typical 3D printer design where you have two rails and a whole bottom plate that's moving up and down. Now, not all printers are made the same. Some actually have different architectures to them, but this one seems to work the best for speed and for precision, the way the X1 Carbon was kind of designed and focused on. Plus, you can kind of see it has a little bit of that Apple-esque approach to it, which makes it pretty darn effective. All right. So over the years, I have had legitimately 13 3D printers. I started in 3D printing when it first got going. Before there was even YouTubers covering 3D printers, I had access to some pretty state-of-the-art printers at my work, and hilariously, they're terrible compared to what is available today. When we look over 3D printing and where it's gotten to in the market, it is just so useful in comparison. So let me crank the music down just a little bit in the background. So as we look at where 3D printing has gotten to now, these things are moving with like laser precision accuracy, but the best part is like bed adhesion to flow consistency to all the aspects of material being handled through the printer are just handled so much better than it used to be. There used to be problems where like you couldn't get the first layer to adhere, or the consistency just wasn't right, so it kind of turned into a meshy, gooey bit, versus you look at how accurate this is, right? And I know we're looking at the Bamboo primarily, but like you could see it even in that little image there. If I switch back to the main camera, the accuracy and precision on this is good enough where you might as well just consider this a product as is. Quite a few things that you're ordering off of Amazon where if you can kind of look at it and be like, that was made on a 3D printer. And yeah, there's the real possibility that 3D printers are printing well enough that you could use them for a genuine product. Okay, and I gotta show. Yeah, the puppy showed up. She just wanted to join in. She hears all the commotion going on out here. She's bumping into the microphone because that's what she wants to do. Hi, baby. Who's the best girl? It's definitely you. You want to come here? Yeah? Oh, there you go. Yeah, you're liking these rainy days where I get to stay home with you and mess around with things and do projects in the yard. You really enjoyed that. Huh. want to say something? Oh, you saw what's on the screen. There's a puppy looking at you. Yeah, so this dog's name is Willow. Willow the pillow. Alright, in the background behind me though, you see the 3D printer's doing its gig. It's getting to work, it's starting that first layer. It's actually scanning to make sure that the consistency in the layers is working the way it should. Hey, do you want to move or do you want to stay here? Yeah, you want to stay here. Let me get this to move. Alright, so right now it just ran a couple first layer passes. It's making sure everything's going to work on the plate. And what's important about that, and I think it shows it in the preview here. Yeah, there it is. So you could see it just did this jam. And that jam, later baby, that jam makes it so that it could see if there's anything wrong. And I've seen it where it went and did that, and then it looks at it, and then it did it again, and you saw the layer got better, which is your indicator that, like, wow, it compensated for something that it didn't know, like, what, or it did know what went wrong and then adjusted for it and made the layers better. And then the best part that happens after is now when you look at the actual model printing, that's the first layer. You could see it's actually going really successful, right? And that's what's really impressive about this 3D printer, the Bamboo Lab in particular, is that you get this design and this architecture that is very effective at making it so that every layer is a perfect layer. You know, you have a consistency change in the material, and I've seen it pause midway through on a print, and then it goes back with the LiDAR on the front of the nozzle there, and it checks it like, something looks like it's doing this, and then it doesn't ask you, it just works. And that's what's killer about this. So there it is, it's going back, it's doing the second layer now. And we can see it's already 32% into the print. We got 15 minutes to go. And with that said, I think it's time for us to pull up like a different model, actually. Because I trust it. It looks like it's doing fine. I usually don't check on them and just let it do its thing. So let's go open like one of the models I was working on. And we're gonna do a couple of the fun things that I had done to make the model more successful for me. So that's this guy here, actually. So this is my Mesh-tastic device, and let's go modify the model to make it more useful. Okay, so first of all, this was a model that I found off of the actual Bamboo Lab, tool here, and I took it, and it was these 3 parts just like this. And what I had then done is I combined, first of all, these 2 parts together, and I just do a nice little merge. And then these guys, I go over and say under other, I'm gonna say print sequence is by object. Now look at that, it says, ooh, I'm printing this object, then that object, then that object. And what I'm going to do is rotate this object in particular, and it snaps when you're holding it closer to the dial. So I'll snap it to that position, and then I'll grab this one and snap it to that position, rotate it over to there. And now, if we just slice the plate as is, we'll see something kind of neat. And the key is, look at that, by object. It's going to print the first object in the back, then the right object there, followed by the final object off to the left, and then the 2 buttons that are way down here at the bottom. And after that, sure enough, this is 56 minutes later if you do it in like mega draft mode. Obviously, I didn't do that for this because, draft works if you want to just be like, hey, did I design this well enough for it to be useful? Well, you can do a draft in an hour, and 1 hour later, I mean, like what? Making breakfast or lunch later, and suddenly you come back and you could be like, okay, do these parts kind of fit? It looks like I need to move this or that. And you're able to do that with this tool pretty freaking easily. So let's go ahead and go back to it and do a couple other fun things. Like I, first of all, wouldn't print in extra draft. I usually go for something like fine, or like high quality or something like that. But let's say I'm going to do fine. And the other part is, why would I print this in just one color? That's lame. Let's go in here and do some fun painting. So I'm gonna sync the filaments, by the way. I'm gonna ignore and just override it with how this thing's actually loaded, which I have black, gray, green, and white, as you could see in the printer earlier. And we're gonna make it so, let's paint it differently than how I have this guy, because one thing to point out, you could see there's 4 colors on here, right? It's got the black, white, gray, green, but let's say that I wanted this thing to be all like matte gray with black, green, and white accents. And it's kind of that way on this side. So let's do exactly that. Also, I'm moving the stream over so that if anybody was to be making a comment, I could see that. All right, so first of all, I'm gonna paint by layer. And what's nice about this, check this out. If I click that layer right there, look what it just did. It took a layer out of the slicing that I clicked and said that's gonna be gray. Now, what's important about that is you print by layers. And if you have 4 colors in a single layer, that means that it will change the filament 4 times, and it'll take a really long time to do it. Versus if I say I'm only going to make this sequence of layers gray, then what you had is it started with the black material, moved to the gray, and then goes back to black, and it just keeps printing. Well, okay, let's go a little further and say every hole is going to be white. Okay, so there's the white, and better yet, we're going to make it so that the Meshtastic logo will be the green, and we will make it so that the front plate is gray. And yeah, that looks pretty legit. So you'll end up having a black case for the entire unit. And then look what happens here. If we zoom real close, we can see there's an error that we probably want to handle a little bit. And that error is that it went from black to green to black, then to white. And look, there's a layer of black before it goes to the gray. So let's fix that by filling the rest of it in with gray. Now, this makes it so that every single transition will make it so that the layers only have one color and it doesn't accidentally try to use multiple in a single, go. So, all right, that worked pretty well. But let's also go a little further and say, hey, this should all be white too. So we'll go down, blend the white, and blend the gray on this top layer a little deeper, and I'll bet you that looks pretty legit. Okay, cool. So there's our faceplate, done there. All right, and the back plate also has texture on it too. So first thing we're going to do is rotate it so we can actually see it, and there it is facing up. And then let's go down to that and say, hey, what colors do I want this? Well, we'll do by layer as well. We can make it white on that first layer. And in fact, rather than making it very thin, we'll make it so it's quite a few layers. So that is all nice and white as you first print it. So that means on the bed layer, because we'll flip it back over, it'll be white, then it transitions to black, and it'll continue printing like that. But remember, we were saying earlier, we kind of wanted this thing to have a lot of accents of gray. So let's instead go from white to gray through the whole battery pack. And there we have it. I think that looks pretty legit. So there's a thick layer of white on the first layer, followed by gray, and then black. Now, let's go ahead and just rotate that guy back over. Snap, 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 snap. And there we are. Pretty legit. Cool. And now the final piece. Now, oh boy, oopsies. So as we look at this guy, we could see that this is snapping into this piece. So see the way it goes gray, white, green, and then it's black for the rest of it? Well, this black will cover all of that, entirety of it there. But you know what? I kind of think that it would be cool if it had some mixed color to it. So while it's printed, let's add a little bit of let's call it a racing stripe, where it's going to go gray, green, and then we'll make it a little thinner for the white, like that. And there you have it. when this guy prints, and let's go back and say, remember it was less than an hour at extra draft. Well, printing like this should take a little bit longer, like 4 hours or so. Nope, just 2 hours. It's the killer thing about when you lay something out right and set it up properly. Well, there's a problem though. Hold on. Actually, we gotta cover this. This guy needs to also be flipped onto its face so that it prints not hollow. Okay, because you can't print over air, right? So the bed's gonna get all of that adhered to it, and then it'll actually not have a hollow section where it needs supports or anything. So yeah, that's how this could be laid out. But let's do the silly thing, and I'm just gonna say we'll do by layer, and let's say you had a full stack up for this entire design, just to show like, oh, what happens if you actually try to print something like not with the design kind of in mind. So I'm just gonna like line it up and then try to, I gotta add these all as like a merge device where I then, yeah, so hold on, return, click, click, and click, and we can go merge, and then once those are merged, now I can go into object and I can select the particular object I want, and now I can increase the height. So check that out. So gotta get it lined up a little better. And there we are. So the holes are lined up. You can see the lines are lined up. This guy's pretty big, but now let's go ahead and grab the other object. 5, I think. Cool. And we'll rotate him in as well. We could put him on his face, but let's just get him aligned first. Snapped into place and snapped into place. And then, oh no, I gotta grab object 5 again on the left there, where I could then place it where it needs to go. And now we'll do the height where it lines up like that. All right, cool. So check that out. We gotta obviously move this to the plate because that is the transition layers that it's gonna do while it's printing it. Make sure that those end up looking right. Now, you can see there's a little gap that I left just so we get an idea of it. But let's take a pretend like you're gonna print in place the entire design that we have here. And while it's printing in place, you're gonna end up having, yep, all of that. 138 layers tall, where it transitioned almost layer by layer to a different color. And remember how it was 2 hours before? 3 hours and 30 minutes now. The extra bit is from this over here, but the other part is that this won't actually be possible to print because there's floating segments. Like it suddenly prints this, has an air gap, and then tries to print the next section. And that's just a mess of something to do. Now, here's another one. What happens if this was printed on a different axis? If I printed it like that, right there. So we'll go slice plate. All right, so it added support because it saw like, hey, this ain't gonna work. It's gonna need some help. So it put a brim at the bottom, and well, let's just say it takes a little longer to print, 1 day and 9 hours. The reason is, watch what happens on any given layer. So I just did a sliced view where we're gonna look at layer 250, okay? So first thing that happens is it's gonna print in one of the colors, and it looks like black. So it prints in black, then it has to transition to a new color where it comes back to continue printing. Look at how many cycles it's gonna do before it then prints a bunch of little gray segments, and it goes off to go do some BS in the background too, comes back and prints the green segment, and then finally the white. So in one layer, it had to transition through 4 different colors, and just that transition is like a minute for each one. So you got like 4 minutes on a layer versus you do the 4-minute wait and then you print a whole block of layers, which this thing flies through when it's doing that. So let's just Control Z back until it looks like this thing goes back to how it was by object. Oh, I think we nailed it. Cool. So we're gonna come back to suddenly see, oh, by printing as these separate objects that you can then snap together, which in not all cases do you have to actually have something that you can snap together, right? But 3 hours, not bad. That's great, honestly. And meanwhile, how's our other print doing? Camera's coming back online, but let's just look over here. Yeah, you can see the boat's almost done just looking at the other view. And looking at the internal view here, yeah, it's got 3 minutes left. It's on layer 142 of 192, which also tells you it's about to fly through these final layers pretty quickly. And there's a good reason for that. It's because the little Benchy boat that it was based on has a smokestack. And there you are. So it's going through those final layers, right? And if we open up the Benchy file that we ended up using for this when we sliced and everything like that, you'll see something kind of neat as we flip between these two cameras. Okay, so first of all, yeah, that's what it's about to print. See that little smokestack at the top? And what you're going to see it do is it's finishing off these lower layers and it starts building the smokestack, and then suddenly it stops the final layer and then it just flies through these remaining ones. This one's a good indicator of how are you handling the amount of heat that's being dumped into this very small amount of plastic really fast. So, you know, if I flip back to this microphone, yeah, the tough thing that you have in 3D printing is everything, right? And this is one example of a tough thing, because what you got going on is that, like, out of nowhere, you suddenly have to deal with a massive amount of 200 and something C heat being flooded into this little tube that you do only 3 layers and circles very rapidly, right? And you can see it's about to get to it. It's doing the little circle, and then suddenly it flies over to that again, right? Let's go take a look. When I'm over here, ramping this up. Yeah, it's currently doing the little smokestack. It's doing the edge right there. And I'll hold it up to the camera really close in a moment once it's done. But yeah, that's the progress we're looking at so far. Man, as we're getting to 30 minutes in the stream, I think this one we haven't had any viewers actually drop by. If I just look at the stream, oh, we're actually at 2. If I just look at the stream, oh, we're actually at 2. That's interesting. It took a moment to catch up to that. And there we are. It just wrapped up its print. Let's go look back at the second camera so you can see the whole view of what it did. And I'm about to get a message on my phone and all my devices that are going to tell me, yeah, it's done and we're good, right? All right, so it just backed out on the AMS and the filament. It lowered the plate down, and it's about to give me the message that says it's good. So let me go ahead and migrate my microphone to the headset again, because we're going to walk over here and grab it. Now, I got this nice little spatula here to help me in cleaning off the plate like so. And you can see that is that little test print where it was checking the flow. And earlier I was mentioning this, and I'm looking at the camera to tell. You could tell, check it out. Like, the flow consistency was not very good, and then it got really good, really good. And then it got to the point where it could do the little precise checking that it needed to make sure that the flow rate on that filament was going to work. And the evidence is, you know, right here. Look at that. We've got a successful little Benchy model at the end that we just printed in like 20 minutes flat. And this, like, it's a little warm, but it's not like excessively hot at all. And so I'm just gonna look at it close up before I put it in front of the camera and talk through it. Yeah, okay. So it came out darn good. Hey, there you go. So you can see the layer consistency. It just wants to find anything but something close to the camera to focus on, right? But overall, the layer consistency came out really good. And even in that ultra draft mode, like that's what's impressing me. It's like, okay, for an under 20-minute print, this thing worked great, you know, realistically. And when I say 20 minutes, there was 5 minutes of prep time that it took to just get the printer ready. And then this sub 20-minute pump out that just happened. If there was like multiple on the bed, yeah, each one of them was probably only 18 minutes or like 15 minutes to do. So especially you put multiple. And if you did want to do these in full color or something, you know, if you did it by layer like I was showing, yeah, that's a real possibility as well. And in fact, that might be a really fun one to queue up just for fun in terms of the preview and, you know, doing this. So I'm gonna grab that Benchy model again and let's dive back in. Okay, so here we are. It's already on the plate, good to go. Let's go ahead and go into the painting scheme, and let's just ignore what I was saying about, you know, everything about, hey, it makes sense to do it this way, that way, or the other. Let's just have fun painting it. So first of all, boats are gray, right? Like, let's make it gray. And then after that, I don't know, the smokestack, dude, I feel like the smokestack should be black, right? That's got this, like, you know, smoky look to it. And there's a wheel on the inside, and the wheel could be green. Let's make sure we hit every edge of that wheel. So on the inside here and there we go. We got a wheel that's green with a white interior to it. And maybe on the front here, unless chat, a few people look to be watching. If anyone has a comment on paint a color somewhere, I'll do it. So we'll make that white, that white. Ooh, we need a little better edge detection. And there we go. Okay, that covered it better. So we got white on the 2 port holes on the front. Well, I guess those would be like anchor holes or something. Oh no, we went too far. Right, let's go ahead and go back. Take our edge detection in a little bit. Come on. There we are. And what if I click that? That's too much. There we are. That's looking good. Okay. On the inside, you know what? No, the deck should be like black, like down there. And I'm going to use a different tool. I'm going to use the circle. So pen size, I'll make it pretty big. And we're going to paint it like we're painting it. There we are. Okay. So there we are, making some paint marks that are terrible. I don't like how I just did that. Let's do that a little bit better. So we're just going to draw a little, you know, triangle here without touching too much of the rest of the bow. And I think that looks pretty good. Let's go back here and we'll do the same in the rear. So that area back here gets a little bit of paint as well. And we'll reduce the sizing. This is as though you're got the decking on your boat that's got the black back here, and then we'll fill in some of the other walking spaces up to there. All right, that looks pretty decent, and we'll do it in there. We won't get in the cabin because that'll be just ridiculous. So that looks okay, but let's do a little bit more white accenting on like every porthole that we find. So that'll be there. We'll do it on the door. Yeah, definitely the door. Definitely needed it. Okay, and then the front and the rear. And look at that. Like, so far, we're doing pretty good. It's got the black smokestack, gray body to it, white on all the ports and things like that. And you know what? Let's do that for the rear as well on this guy. Ooh, it's a little too much is what it's detecting, so we'll fix that up. Oh no. Yeah, we hit something we didn't want to hit. Cool. I think that looks pretty legit. Oh, and there's text, which this is something that's fun, is that the accuracy on the Bamboo Lab is good enough that if we were to paint the text like this, give it some pretty good wide edge detection so it catches a lot of it. This might be crazy when it renders, but screw it. Also, let me just bump it up a lot. Yeah, that's what we're talking about, right? Just knock the whole darn thing out. Oh, alright. And then we can come back and fix the other side of what I had done here. Yeah, that, and then that, and then that. I think that's almost good enough. We'll hit the B. I'm not going to bother with the pound symbol. There we are. 3D Benchy. Okay. So we went from a generic know-nothing Benchy to suddenly fancy Benchy. And by the way, I grabbed the little prime tower. I like putting it right up front, even though it's doing the whole jazz in the back. But this guy is probably going to go from something like a 20-minute print to a... I can't even give you a number. Let me look at this. We did 20 minutes on, like... What was that? Extra draft? So let's see what happens when we extra draft, but high detail a 3D Benchy. So first of all, you can see the prime tower is all the way to the top, and you can see the layering of what colors got used in each layer. So it starts with the gray, and then suddenly it starts using other colors, so it has to transition between them. And remember, every layer that you do a transmission is like a minute or more just to go from one color to another. So if you have a prediction on what it'll be, it turned out to be 6 hours versus 20 minutes. Yeah, let's look at that again. 6 hours and 2 minutes, as it then goes through 78 grams of filament. Each of those rolls is 1,000, right? So it's almost 100 grams, but that's from 4 rolls as it goes through each of the colors. And you can see the colors are called out here too. So you got the black, gray, green, and white. Changes filaments almost 200 times in order to build this fully painted Benchy, whom, you know, I did not a great job painting it. And on top of that, look at the layering. The layers are huge. So if we were to transition to something like I typically print in fine, this might take days to make this one Benchy model, 14 hours. And that is to make something that, again, is this big, right? It took 20 minutes. We just made this during the stream, right? But suddenly when you add that much paint and texture and it has to transition on like every layer, suddenly you're at 14 hours solid. So, yeah. Oh, we're up to 3 viewers so far. Hi, and welcome. Okay, so that was what I wanted to jump through, just walking through a quick like 3D printing tutorial, walking through my Bamboo Lab printer and designing something fun. Earlier in the stream, I had gone through what, oh, I thought I was showing my screen. I'm sorry about that. Monitor, there you go. So I had shown that I have this thing called like Meshtastic that I covered in a prior stream. And I fully 3D printed the enclosures that I have done for my Meshtastic devices. So I'm gonna scoot closer here. So these enclosures are like, this is solid and has its battery and everything built into it. And I custom designed it based on what I needed. I needed something a little bit more rugged. And I found a common model. This is somebody else's, you know, initial design. And I sized it to fit my battery and the hardware that I wanted to put in it. And a similar thing is I did the same with this. This is, you know, it's funny. Someone might see this and be like, hey, that was my design. Whoa, that was different. Yeah, I disassembled it differently and made it so it could assemble based on a much larger battery and architecture that I had put together. And that's the awesome part about 3D printing, because you can do that kind of jazz here. You can take something, and you saw the way that I had painted earlier. You know, I can take this stuff and design it to be my own, or better yet, adjust the design to then actually meet the needs that I have. So, yeah, I hope that was pretty useful, just to see overall that you can make some pretty cool stuff with 3D printers. Yeah. Hey, thank you so much for dropping into the stream. This was all I wanted to really cover of everything. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing a lithoplane. So a lithoplane is where you take an image and you mix layers of filament to create that image that you could physically see. So let me just pull up a lithoplane really quick, because I do have one that I prepped, but we'll have to do the full transition to it. So here's a picture of my Jeep when I'm like off-roading way back in the day before I have all the mods to it. And you can see it's on this full bed of the print, all right? And we'll be designing one of these from scratch to make it so that we have a new image, and I want to print it out. I might actually print one before we do the stream tomorrow just to show something off. And then I'm going to show moving things through the AMS and actually getting the whole thing set up, the kit and the caboodle. So with that said, yeah, tomorrow there'll be another stream walking through another 3D print, and I might have more content to bring in as well, just because I like doing tech and things like this, and I got a little time while we got some intermittent weather. So hey, thank you so much for dropping in, and hey, until next time for 3D printing and tech, this was Matayoman. Later. I don't think the stream is stopping. And I know you just came here too. Up? Yeah? I know. Ah, there we go. Now I can cut it out. Later.